Good morning and welcome to another edition of United Way for Southeastern Michigan's What's the Word Wednesdays. My name is Courtney Howe, and today we are going to be talking about housing justice and source of income protections. This is the third town hall in a series of What's the Word Wednesday events focused on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It aligns with United Way's 21-day equity challenge, which began on May 20th and is continuing through June 17th. We'll share more details about the Equity Challenge and how you can get involved at the end of this event. For now, though, let's turn our attention to the housing justice movement. As a reminder, we'll reserve the last 10 minutes for questions at the end. So please put your questions in the chat box on Zoom or in the comment section if you're watching on Facebook. We are joined today by Elizabeth Kelly and Lisa Chapman. Both women are working towards dismantling barriers in housing and are going to speak about their work within the housing justice system. They will also share ways that community members can get involved in housing justice through advocacy. So we'll start with Elizabeth. Elizabeth Kelly is recently retired CEO of HOPE. HOPE is an acronym for Helping Oakland's People Every Day, which is located in Pontiac and features a low-barrier emergency shelter for homeless adults. HOPE is a recuperative shelter which serves those who are unsheltered and discharged to homes from hospitals. They also shelter those who have COVID and other communicable diseases. Retirement allows Elizabeth to continue her advocacy work to ensure that everyone has a safe place to live, access to nutritious foods, and support to live their best lives. She was named 2020 Hometown Hero by Senator Rosemary Bayer, the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness 2017 Public Policy Champion, the Michigan Hometown Health Hero in 2015, one of the 2014 Esteemed Women of Michigan, and received the Arc of Oakland County 2011 President Award. Wonderful work. Elizabeth also hosts and produces PBS television show, A Wilder World, which is a 30-minute weekly show seen through the US and Canada. At this time, we'll also introduce Lisa Chapman. Lisa Chapman is an enthusiastic collaborator with more than 30 years of experience in the nonprofit sector and currently works with the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness as the Director of Public Policy. Previously, Lisa was with Community Housing Network as a Director of Strategic Initiatives and at Corporation for Supportive Housing, CSH, a national nonprofit for 20 years, working with communities in Michigan and across the country to end veteran homelessness and develop supporting housing. She served as the co-chair of Michigan Intimacy Council on Homelessness for 2 years as part of collaborative work on the stateside campaign to end homelessness. Lisa served as a member of the Michigan Balance of State, COC, and is currently an officer on the Macomb COC board. Lisa holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in social work and psychology from Michigan State University. We have some fabulous talent here with us today. So Elizabeth and Lisa, thank you both for joining us today. We're excited to hear more about your work and have a discussion on housing justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So good morning. We're going to talk about source of income protections. Can we go to the next slide, please? So Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness is a 30-year-old statewide nonprofit and membership organization. Our mission is to serve as an inclusive voice to improve systems and support communities to prevent and end homelessness in a way that leaves no one behind. Our vision is to advance housing justice and make ending homelessness a shared priority. And we work through collaborations and partnerships all across the state. And now I'll turn it to Elizabeth. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. And HOPE's mission statement is one that we're very proud of because it not only speaks to our judgment-free shelter, but also public advocacy we consider to be as important as the shelter we provide. We've been sheltering adults experiencing homelessness since 1998. We began as a seasonal warming center, and now, as Courtney mentioned, we're providing both emergency shelter, low barrier emergency shelter, and low barrier recuperative shelter, which is discharged to home when an individual experiencing homelessness is released from the hospital. We are committed to making sure that hope is the last shelter that individuals will have to need. And we are committed to helping our guests permanently resolve their homelessness through housing, and we connect guests through our community partners, which include medical clinics, primary care, behavioral health, in addition to the housing. So we're really excited to be part of this, and thank you so much for the invitation. Next slide, please. Okay, did you know that how you pay your rent matters? Landlords can legally restrict tenancy to earned income, and they often post signage that you'll see on websites or sometimes flags hanging out at apartment complexes that say, you must earn a monthly wage equal to 3 times the monthly rent. And the word that is key there is earn. You have to earn that. They do not take into consideration, often they're not obligated to take into consideration money that is legally received by individuals, but perhaps something like a subsidy, a housing subsidy, is not something that they necessarily have to rent to you. They can decline to rent. So we know that there's already an affordable housing crisis in Michigan and in the United States. Inflation has been wreaking havoc with the housing market, dramatically increasing the costs. And in the suburban areas, there's been a history of people building high density housing in favor of single family homes. So one of the most common examples of source of income discrimination is what you see on the screen: the refusal of landlords to accept tenants who receive tenant-based rental assistance through the Housing Choice Voucher, which is formerly Section 8. These Housing Choice Vouchers provide government assistance to help low-income households afford the rent so that they can rent the units of their choice. These programs are attractive because they allow people to go to that community that they want to live in and to move into more resource-rich localities. However, some landlords will refuse to accept these vouchers, and it makes it difficult for voucher holders who already are experiencing a tight market to successfully find and lease housing, potentially resulting in vouchers being turned back to the agency unused because some program participants can't find a landlord to accept them within the allotted time. And I know in Oakland County, they historically have been experiencing that 1 in 4 of the vouchers gets returned. And these are sort of the golden ticket. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do we need source of income protection? I teased a little bit in the last slide, but just imagine for a minute that you have no home. What will you do for meals today? Where will you shower? Where will you sleep? And if you have children, how will you provide for them? How will you cope with being homeless tomorrow, next week, or next month? But for 100 million people throughout the United States and throughout the world, and 60,000 in Michigan, not having a home to go to each night is a hard, sad reality. And if you're lucky enough to qualify and receive a rent subsidy, imagine how this might transform your opportunity. But then you find that maybe this is just a dead end because you can't find a place that will accept this legal but unearned income. The homelessness that you once thought was resolved through the subsidy is prolonged indefinitely because many of the affordable housing units will not rent to those receiving a subsidy to pay for their rent and utilities. Next slide, please. As indicated on this slide, there is some hope. Some states and localities have attempted to expand the choices available to voucher holders by passing fair housing laws that define federal rental assistance as a lawful source of income subject to the fair housing law protection. These laws provide voucher holders with the same kinds of protections as other protected classes that are identified in the Federal Fair Housing Act and, of course, in the Elliott-Larsen Act in Michigan. As a result, when victims feel that they have been discriminated against, they can bring those claims of discrimination based on source of income to be investigated. And if evidence of that discrimination is found, these claims can become the basis for enforcement actions and for lawsuits. On the slide, you'll see that we talk about different types of income. It's not just the Section 8, but there are other housing subsidies. This is impacting veterans. I've even had university students, especially those in medical school, tell me that landlords won't accept money that comes from their student loans, and that parents will have to co-sign for them. So this is something where if you have another source of income that's not earned income, this can be something that compromises your ability to be able to live where you want to live. There is some controversy when voucher holders, when there are laws that try to support these voucher holders. Landlords and landlord associations sometimes push back when local municipalities try to make sure that source of income is excluded as a reason to prevent someone from renting in your building. And the reasons for turning the voucher holders away vary, but often they include concerns about, and this is a very real concern, the regulatory burden associated with participation in some of these, like the housing choice voucher. There's paperwork that has to happen, but some property owners also reject people based on source of income because they may have unfavorable views of voucher holders based on misperceptions or even past experience with other families or individuals that were on a voucher. Next slide, please. And then veterans. They are another group that has experienced discrimination because there's also the ability to receive vouchers and also support for housing, for purchase of housing as well. Veterans who are good tenants may be turned down for an apartment or even a lease renewal because of how they pay their rent. Housing decisions should be based on the merits of the individual and not harmful stereotypes about those who receive housing assistance. If you pass a screening and background check, you shouldn't be denied a place to live because of your service record or because of how your rent will be paid. So we do need source of income protections in Michigan. As you saw on the previous slide, there are some places, local municipalities, that have carved out source of income. Some of them have protections that have some legal teeth, some don't, some just, it's more of a suggestion. But we're now working towards seeing what we might be able to do as a state. So next up is Lisa Chapman, who will talk about some of the state and local initiatives to close this loophole. And so we will then not be able to, our voucher holders will not be able to experience this legal discrimination of those whose rent is paid fully or partially through subsidy. So Lisa, next slide, please.
Please. Thanks, Elizabeth. So as mentioned, Michigan does not have a statewide source of income protection for renters or persons purchasing a home. Some local cities have source of income laws here in Michigan, as mentioned, but there's either no mechanism to enforce it or very weak. So here we have 4 source of income protection bills that were introduced in the Michigan House and Senate in 2021. 2 bills amend the landlord-tenant law. The other 2 amend the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act and would add source of income as a protected class. These bills are important as they prohibit housing discrimination based solely on legal source of income. The bill language states source of income and includes 24 different benefits or subsidy programs, including various sources of housing assistance, veterans benefits, Social Security, SSI, and other retirement programs, and other programs administered by any federal, state, local, or nonprofit entity. The term source of income does not include income derived by illegal manner. Source of income discrimination disproportionately impacts people of color, women, and people with disabilities. And one important point to note here is that this legislation does not compel or require a landlord to take the voucher. It merely requires them to include all legal sources of income when they do their income calculations. Next slide, please. Other benefits of source of income protections are many. If enacted, this legislation would increase the available stock of affordable rental units to voucher holders, including veterans, people on SSI, families receiving TANF or FIP, among many others. Source of income discrimination can limit a low renter's opportunity for mobility and ability to live in the community of their choosing, resulting in maintaining or furthering segregation in communities. Source of income protections, if enacted, would allow for economic mobility and choice. This legislation gives tenants more opportunity to find a rental unit in areas with better schools, closer to their jobs, recreation and transportation, childcare, and many other community amenities. There are now 20 states in DC, that's fine. There are now 20 states in the District of Columbia that have enacted source of income protection laws. Illinois just passed this statewide in April of this year after working on it for 20 years. So what can you do to help? You can join our Coalition for Expanding Housing Access, which is a statewide work group of housing and justice advocates dedicated to passage of this legislation. We meet monthly on the second Thursday at 10 a.m. and you can email me to join. You can advocate with your state rep or senator. We need hearings in both chambers to move this legislation to the floor for a vote. If it doesn't get passed out of committee this year, we have to reintroduce it next year. You can sign on as an individual or as an organization to our source of income protection sign-on letter. The link will be put, there it is in the slide and in the chat. And we really are hoping to demonstrate broad support for this legislation. Please share this information with your networks, participants, and colleagues, as well as landlords that you may work with. 53% of landlords that we surveyed said they would accept housing choice vouchers in a survey by our coalition statewide work group. This legislation would be both beneficial for tenants and landlords. For tenants, it enables folks to have their full income counted as their total income, potentially qualifying them for a broader array of rental opportunities in communities of their choosing. For landlords, it benefits them too, because renters with subsidies, such as housing choice vouchers, bring a stable source of rental assistance that has been continuously funded since the program's inception in the 1970s. Studies show that tenants with housing choice vouchers are stable long-term tenants. As well, past research indicates that families with housing choice vouchers have a better chance of moving out of homelessness, and housing authorities have higher rates of utilization in the voucher in jurisdictions with source of income protections. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "Our lives begin to end the day we come silent about things that matter." We want to thank you for your time and attention to this housing justice issue that impacts so many people in Michigan. And we hope you will sign on and join us in advocating for this much needed legislation.
Lisa and Elizabeth, thank you both so much. It was very informative, and I know we have a lot of questions that are coming to the floor. I do want to start with this question. The first question says, From an equity standpoint, can you explain how strong source of income protections would open up higher opportunities for housing mobility for women, people of color, and veterans?
I ran a homeless shelter. And so one of the things that we saw were that people of color were disproportionately affected by homelessness. And so therefore, this is a real issue for them. And the same thing, my colleagues that serve families, what they found is that it's very difficult to find an appropriately sized apartment and house where the landlord is willing to rent to someone with children. And you also have the economic factors that are part of it, where there is a belief that people who are on a subsidy may destroy, even though this is without any kind of basis, but they feel that they might destroy the property more than someone who is paying for it with earned income. So most definitely, this is a huge equity issue. This is impacting our most vulnerable and people who have historically been impacted by unfair practices.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. We do have, I believe, time for one more question. This is for the both of you. We are in the midst of an affordable housing crisis. Can you give a little detail on how long someone might be on the list to qualify for a housing voucher and what the process looks like for that?
I can take this one. There are a couple different kinds of vouchers. There are some that are specifically for veterans. There are some for people experiencing homelessness or those that are unhoused. So it depends which voucher the person qualifies for. The one that we commonly think of is limited to people with lower incomes. It depends on which community they're signing up for. Some communities have closed lists. MISTA is the largest, I believe, in the country provider of housing choice vouchers and is our statewide housing authority and administers tens of thousands of vouchers and has a preference for people that are unhoused. So if you're on the homeless preference list, they do polls pretty regularly, at least a couple times a year, depending upon the community. And people can get, are eligible for a voucher, can get one. However, unfortunately, a lot of times, as Elizabeth said, 1 in 4 people are not able to find housing. They have to turn the voucher back. They can ask for an extension in the time frame, but it's very, very difficult to find, even more so now, one that they can afford in a community that they, a quality unit where they want to live.
Thank you for sharing. And do you have any more information about maybe the veterans vouchers as well, vouchers for veterans?
The veterans voucher is called VASH. It's VA supportive housing, and veterans that are homeless or unhoused qualify, and they work with their local VA as well as community providers to help them locate a unit, and they provide them supports once they move into the unit. And it works like a regular, your regular voucher where they pay 30% of their income toward their rent. And it's really a blessing for veterans to get that help to find a unit and to move in and to get the furnishings that they need to get into a unit. And it's been very successful in effectively reducing or ending veteran homelessness in a lot of communities around the country.
Beautiful. Well, ladies, thank you so much. My last and closing kind of questions as we wrap up here. Several local municipalities have passed their own source of income protections. So are there resources available if people who are watching would like to ask their city about passing something similar, or how can our viewers get more involved within this work?
In Oakland County, Commissioner Charlie Cavell has been instrumental in getting some of the municipalities to sign on. Some of them are in the process of doing that, but Ferndale is an example of an early adopter. And so there's usually local champions among elected officials that would be good as point people to connect with.
I would also offer people can email either one of us and we can connect you up. We have, networks around the state that people can talk to for communities that have the laws and also for model ordinance language.
Wonderful. Well, that's all the time that we have for questions today. Again, thank you, Elizabeth and Lisa, for joining us and for all of the work Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness and HOPE does for our community. As a reminder to our viewers today, you can take action with us on these issues right now by advocating to end source of income discrimination. We'll drop the link in the chat to where you can email, call, and tweet at your legislators. We have a few more updates to share with you before we close out today's event. As a reminder, for everyone in our community who may be experiencing a need, our 211 helpline remains available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This includes resources like cooling centers, many of which are open this week, especially today. We always maintain a running list of available services in the community and can connect you to the support that you may need. You can also look up resources in your area by using our 211 resource database at unitedwaysem.org/211. As I mentioned previously, United Way's 21-Day Equity Challenge is underway right now. This is an annual event featuring daily emails and weekly discussions aimed at deepening our understanding of ourselves, our community, and inequities that we face. You are still able to sign up for the remaining emails and catch up on previous content on topics like resilience and healing, racial disparities in healthcare, and more. We'll be hosting our community celebration event to close out the Equity Challenge on Friday, June 17th, and we hope that you can join us for it. You can learn more and sign up online at unitedwaysem.org/equity challenge. Our next town hall will be on June 22nd, and it will focus on learning more about the services for Indigenous populations in Michigan, as well as veterans. Southeast Michigan Indians will join us for this very exciting conversation, so please be sure to join us. To see our previous town halls and to sign up for email updates on upcoming town halls, please visit unitedwaysem.org/virtual town halls. The website is also included in the chat box. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We will see you soon, and stay safe and continue to live united. Thank you.